A man who'd seen and done more than most of us will do in a lifetime arrived in Edinburgh in autumn 1758, and yet he still had a whirlwind of life ahead of him. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right of the screen and ring the notification bell to be told when I upload new videos. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Edinburgh in 1758 was like it is today, but different. What we call the old town was just the town. The new town on the other side of what's now Princes Street Gardens was 10 years away. But you would have recognised the Royal Mile extending from castle to palace, with the city's life surrounding it. That life would have taken place in multi-storey houses either side of the closes that ran down to the Norloch on one side and the Cowgate on the other. Just like it does today. In the street, there would have been hustle and bustle and little lean-to shops called luckin booths. And of course, towering over it all was St Giles Cathedral, with the smoke and the smell of the streets rising to justify the town's nickname, Auld Reekie. On the other side of St Giles Cathedral, Scotland's Parliament was still sitting, as were the law courts. Not long previously, the Jacobites had been ensconced in the town. I'm sure they frequented the booths and shops that would have teemed in the square. Some of the shops would be selling a newly in vogue drink, coffee. Although you'd certainly be able to get a more traditional tipple of claret as well. It was from these coffee shops that burst forth the Scottish enlightenment that would change the world. Adam Smith and David Hume, innovation, debate and examination. But it's not the men who frequented the coffee shops that interests us, but a proprietor. His name was Indian Peter, and he was the owner of Indian Peter's Coffee House. It'll become apparent. Indian Peter must have been pretty successful in business, because having run Indian Peter's Coffee House, he opened another one not 100 yards away here in Old Parliament Close. Profits were helped by sales of a book that he'd written about his experiences when he'd lived in the Americas. Are you starting to see why he's called Indian Peter? His book was banned in Aberdeen, but here he sold it to customers as he refreshed and entertained lawyers from the court and the glittering stars of Edinburgh's literati and chattering class. He was an ingenious chap. He arrived in the city in 1758, but 4 years later, he also managed to invent a new type of threshing machine to improve the efficiency of crop harvesting. Pretty impressive, given that the time taken up by his legal issues. Maybe I should have mentioned that. Peter spent the 4 years between arriving in Edinburgh and his agricultural invention pursuing legal action against some merchants and business people up in Aberdeen. The folks who'd suppressed that book about his experiences in the Americas. It's a long story. In truth, this is really the last in a series of 3 episodes about that story, cleverly divided to make 3 standalone videos. Now this next bit will give you a quick summary, but if you want more details on this backstory, I'll leave a link to the other 2 videos top right. Check it out. Shortly after Peter arrived in Edinburgh in the autumn of 1758, an advert appeared in the Edinburgh Evening Courant of the 7th of October. It said, "Lately arrived from North America and lodges at Mrs. John Mitchell's in the uppermost entry of James Court, Edinburgh. Peter Williamson, who was taken from his home in the back settlement of Pennsylvania by a party of Indians who carried him to their home where he resided a considerable time and afterwards attended them in several of their excursions before he had the opportunity of making his escape. By residing so long amongst them, he's acquired a particular knowledge of their customs, manners and dress. In fact, he's brought over with him a complete dress, and he's already exhibited to the general public with great satisfaction. Anyway, this newspaper article introduced Indian Peter to Edinburgh. What it didn't mention was how he got to the Americas in the first place. Years earlier, a consortium of merchants and businessmen had been abducting boys from the streets of Aberdeen and transporting them into indentured servitude. But now he was back, and the solicitors who frequented the coffee house assured them that he had a case against the abductors who'd consigned them to torments at the other side of the ocean. This Royal Mile pub is named after another character famously involved in legal troubles during Peter's time here. 30 years before Deacon Brodie's legal trouble, Peter Williamson took his case to the Court of Session, citing Alexander Cushney, late Dean of Guild and Procurator Fiscal of the Borough Court of Aberdeen, and others. The fight for restitution had started. Now, to let you understand how steep was the hill up which Peter had to battle, let me reiterate. He was taking action against the guy who'd been the Procurator Fiscal of Aberdeen. For the non-Scots, that's the head prosecutor. Peter was going toe-to-toe with the people who ran Aberdeen. The people who had him and many others abducted in the first place and sold into servitude across the seas, and suppressed Peter's book, telling the tale. Now, these upright businessmen readily admitted that they'd owned a share in a ship called the Planter, but they explained that it only made one voyage and was shipwrecked. Everything was above board until it was underwater. All the people transported on that ship volunteered and were above the age of consent. There was no such person as Williamson on board. Even if there were, we were just investors. The person you really want to speak to was the overseer, the ship's captain, the carpenter. Have you spoken to Uncle Tom Cobley? They knew that they were guilty as hell. And with inevitability of large fines, the accused wanted to bring in as many others as possible to spread the financial downside of their nefarious enterprise. The thing is that Peter had been speaking to other parties. What's more, he'd managed to get hold of the record book kept by the overseer with accounts of the financial transactions for which he'd claimed expenses, from food and supplies, incidental expenses, to the cost of 3 prostitutes hired for the weekend. Now, for more wholesome entertainment, in 2024, I'll be doing my live comedy show, Stories of Scotland, in West Linton, Crieff, Banchory, East Kilbride, Stranraer, Helensburgh, Oban, Campbelltown, Kilbarchan, Arbroath, Cumbernauld and Fort William. No prostitutes will be involved. I'll then head off to Canada and do the show there. So click the link top right or the link in the description below for dates and tickets. When Peter set out to speak to the people listed in the account book and to find out the purpose of the services that they'd offered, it seemed like everybody had been warned. Everyone was tight-lipped. Well, apart from the prostitutes, because obviously, never mind. The point is that what good was the kidnap book if nobody would talk? Eventually, Peter agreed to go arbitration. But the arbitration would be in Aberdeen, and the judge appointed was, you know the phrase, as drunk as a lord? Well, I'm pretty sure his lordship was inspiration. He was to render his judgment at 3 p.m. on Saturday the 13th of November in a tavern called Mitchell's. But on the appointed day, the Aberdeen Business Syndicate took him for a liquid breakfast. which turned into lunch and then dinner, and I can see 2 glasses, and they're both empty. As Peter Williamson hunted the streets of Aberdeen, his prey, the missing arbiter, is reported to have downed a liquid lunch consisting of a bottle and a half of wine to start, followed by a mug of porter, 2 bottles of claret, and a munchkin and a half of rum punch. That's right, a munchkin and a half. Oh, and a bag of salt and nuts. Peter eventually found where the drunken arbiter had been lured to this justicial travesty. But the tavern owner had been well warned to keep the plaintiffs at bay, and they were barred entry. Peter never got to bring the kidnap accounts book into evidence or present his case, and the case was decided in favour of the merchants. He came back to Edinburgh, but Peter had been through worse than this. Remember to check out my other videos. Peter fought on. There were more legal wranglings. The merchants refused to reveal their full records on account that they were commercially sensitive. Then they agreed on condition that they chose the scrutineer. Then they placed this obstacle and that obstacle. But years later, the Court of Session here in Edinburgh finally decided they were as bent as 2 bob notes. Their lordships finally found in Peter's favour in February 1762. They ordered the defendants to personally pay £100 damages, as well as making them liable for all costs. That was a lot of cash back then. But the wrangling over payments went on for years. In a letter dated the 4th of February 1764, addressed to Walter Scott, no, not him, his dad, the dodgy Aberdonian merchants were still arguing over the instruction that the cash was to come from their personal wealth. Eventually, they were helped by the 5th Earl of Findlater, who had a very important set of purse strings. He had access to a common good fund for the town of Aberdeen that benefited from the salvage and sale of ships wrecked off the Aberdeen coastline. And he judged that paying the compensation and fines due by corrupt magistrates and kidnapping merchants could be defined as the common good of the people. But Peter had revealed the names and activities of key players behind the disgusting trade in indentured children in the area of Aberdeen. In fact, if it hadn't gone through the detailed record keeping of a court case, we may never have known about those misdeeds to this day. But that was only part of what Peter achieved here in Edinburgh. At the start, I told you about his successful coffee shops and the invention of a reaping machine contraption thing. He also wrote more books about his experiences. And when he realised the difference between the retail price of a book and the writer's share, he decided to start printing them himself. In 1769, as the Guild of Printers tightly guarded their secrets from him, he bought a printing press from London and taught himself printing. Once he'd mastered the printing and coffee shop business, he branched out further. In 1773, he devised a unique product, the first Edinburgh Business Directory. Williamson's directory for Edinburgh, Canongate, Leith and suburbs listed all the businesses and contacts in the area. It was like a fringe guide, or Google before Yellow Pages. In his 1774 directory, he published an advert for his new venture, Edinburgh's first postal service. The advert read, "The publisher takes this opportunity to acquaint the public that he will always make it his study to dispatch all letters and parcels, not exceeding 3 pounds in weight, to any place within an English mile to the east, south and west of the Cross of Edinburgh, and as far as south and north Leith, every hour of the day for 1 penny each letter or bundle. He got various shopkeepers in his catchment to operate as collection points, and his own shop at Swan's Close was effectively Edinburgh's first general post office, come coffee shop and printing press. Later in life, Peter's penny post was incorporated in a national postal service, and he was awarded an annual pension. Now, if this seems like quite a life, then remember, I've only related the last part of it. There'll be a link at the end to my other videos. Even then, I haven't had time to tell you about the 3 wives he had here in Edinburgh, or the messy divorce that he went through because one of them became a prostitute. As rubbing shoulders with Deacon Brodie is inspiration to Robert Louis Stevenson. This was a life during which Britain took North America from France, some rebellious colonists created the USA, the French had their own revolution on the European continent, the Enlightenment took hold in Scotland, the British Raj began in India, Robert Burns wrote poems chiefly in the Scots dialect, Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, and Captain Cook landed in Botany Bay. And Edinburgh created the new town. But that incredible life ended on the 19th of January 1799 when Peter was 69. He was buried in Carlton Cemetery, whose renown is such that it's a visitor attraction today. There are great monuments to David Hume, to American Civil War heroes, and the great and the good of Edinburgh. Few of the people who visit this graveyard will think to come to this corner. And even if they did, they probably wouldn't recognise the significance, because Peter Williamson isn't mentioned here. One of the names that is in the gravestone is Agnes Williamson, who died 25 years later and might be related. The plot is owned by her husband, Mr. Scott, but we know that below here are the remains of a Scotsman dressed as per his wishes in Indian deerskin. His name is on the information board, but nothing more. But if you ever visit Carlton Cemetery, you'll know where to find Indian Peter. If you'd like to hear the earlier part of his story, it's coming up on screen now. Support the channel by clicking top right to become a Patreon member, or buy me a coffee in the description below. Ha mi an dóchas gyn bí lama life. Cheery and drastic.